Cleveland Browns general manager Andrew Berry made a ton of moves this offseason, but the biggest move made by the Cleveland Browns was already in the house. We'll get to that. Jeff Lloyd, your latest Locked On Browns.
You are Locked On Browns, your daily Cleveland Browns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends, your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound, LGB, on ELOB, the Locked On Browns podcast, brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Hello, everybody. Your host, Jeff Lloyd, at Jeff_LJ_Lloyd. For those of you new, 7 years now, seventh season covering the Cleveland Browns here for Locked On Browns. I've become a sycophant just like the rest of you. Sundays, Mondays, Thursdays, stomach tied in knots, seeing what this franchise can bring us next. So I've been through it all here. Seventh season with the Cleveland Browns. Appreciate everybody who makes Locked On Browns their first listen every single day, or to the everydayers who are here in full force. Again, you guys are the fabric on which the Locked On Podcast Network is built. Anybody traveling on through, and apparently there was some new traffic over the weekend. Best way to become like the everydayers is to subscribe to the Locked On Browns YouTube channel. Notifications on, so when the content drops, you guys are all there to absorb it. And audio-wise, Locked On Browns, always available, always free, wherever you get your podcast. Today's episode of Locked On Browns is brought to you by the FanDuel Sports Network, the official sportsbook of the NFL. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. And to the Bengals fans over the weekend who, came out, set up camp, set up shop in Camptown in the mentions, the DMs, and you're all classy bunch. Certainly a colorful way to wish happy Father's Day. You're not mad at me. You were mad at your general manager. Coming up in today's episode, third segment, we're going to talk about the way this edge room is built. You've got two proven star commodities. You've got a guy by many people in this league who thinks is going to take the next step. And you got a couple of serious potential players behind those three. The dime package, the dime grouping that Jim Schwartz can go to is going to be crazy. There are a lot of elements to it. There are a lot of things and versatility that Jim Schwartz can do it. We're going to focus that in segment 2. But first and foremost, segment 1, as I mentioned to open, the Cleveland Browns made a ton of additions this offseason. And winning players in Juan Thornhill, 2 Super Bowl rings. Okoronklwo, Super Bowl ring. Rodney McLeod, Super Bowl ring. Defensive coordinator Jim Schwartz, Super Bowl ring. Yes. So for those of you who don't know how to use Google or Wikipedia, the Browns did bring in a lot of winning personnel this offseason. But by far the biggest addition to the Cleveland Browns, and the potential to be the biggest addition to the Cleveland Browns in 2023, is none other than number 4, Deshaun Watson. Now, Deshaun Watson, prior to last season, a career completion percentage of 67%. It's almost unheard of. His touchdown to interceptions, 111 touchdown passes to 41, 70 to the good. He has had 2 4,000-yard passing seasons, both of which would be the best overall passing season in Cleveland Browns history. Deshaun, when the move was made, and I, like many others, were that guy. You got to bring in this guy. The baggage was there. The baggage was real. The off-field was obviously a big concern. I'll still go back to, my original statement to everybody on the time. If you're excited, I get it. If you're conflicted, I get it. If you're pissed, I get it. But my job is to cover this football team and what goes on between the white lines. And though the time to talk about that unfortunately is no more, because my job is to talk about this team and analyze what this team does on the football field. And the fact is, Deshaun Watson, while going 3-3 last season for the Browns and looking every bit the part of a gentleman who has not played football in over 20 calendar months, it showed. There were times where he looked really, really good. Second half against Washington, closing out the game against the Baltimore Ravens. You saw signs, you saw glimpses of who this guy is, who this player is, what this player will be in the future. Now you pair him and the Browns, and I will continue to say this, you doubled down investing on your investment by bringing in Elijah Moore, by bringing in Cedric Tillman, by bringing in Marquise Goodwin. You kept the offensive line here. You didn't just keep Jack Conklin. You extended Jack Conklin. You picked up your fifth-year option on Jedrick Wills. The Browns and obviously, I think one thing that we will differ on is what Jedrick Wills has done to this point. The Browns will never obviously speak negatively on said player, but I think the Browns do believe there is more in the tank with number 71. And for me, I'll go with, hopefully the proof is in the pudding. But Deshaun Watson has a ridiculous amount of arsenal of weapons around him. Amari Cooper, and what Amari Cooper has been in the NFL, and he has been a star wide receiver with 1,000-yard seasons with 3 franchises now: the Raiders, the Cowboys, and of course now the Cleveland Browns in his first season here, while playing his first 11 games with a career journeyman backup, a guy who you probably view as the 34th, 35th, 36th overall quarterback in the NFL. He's a guy you don't mind having to take a little run with in Jacoby Brissett, but he's a guy that you are always most likely looking to upgrade over with. Amari Cooper got it done with Jacoby Brissett and got it done well with Jacoby Brissett. The potential of Elijah Moore, just an absolute playmaker from when you were on the field, out of the backfield, in the slot, on the outside. 4.3 speed is 4.3 speed. The ability to make plays with the ball in his hands as a runner, his ability as a route runner, his ability as a deep route runner. Elijah Moore is a potential breakout player. I will not stop saying it. Elijah Moore, in my opinion, will lead the Cleveland Browns in receptions in 2023 and most likely knock on the door, if not eclipse, his first 1,000-yard season. Donovan Peoples-Jones, a lot of chatter about the future of Donovan Peoples-Jones, and I'm not sure when or if that contract gets discussed. I think the Browns probably want to see what type of year Amari Cooper can give them this year before, and also obviously see what TPJ can do, getting more reps, more development with Deshaun Watson before they make that. David Njoku, we all joked about, a lot of people joked about the money that was given to David Njoku. And at the time, maybe it seemed a little far-fetched, but you take David Njoku's season stats from last season, you extrapolate them over 17 games, and you see that he was being paid money and his production was going to match up in line with what some of the top tight ends in the NFL are getting. Travis Kelce, without standing, he is basically on a pillar of his own. But he has the offensive line. I have not mentioned Nick Chubb and the greatness that is Nick Chubb, and I think we're going to see the most highly productive season as a receiver for Nick Chubb that we've seen. Because I think for Jerome Ford, if the success will be there for Jerome Ford, it'll be easier as a runner, which means you're going to find opportunities to probably get Nick Chubb more opportunities as a receiver in 2023. We started to see glimpses of it, what he could do with Deshaun Watson as 2022 closed out. So we are closing out segment 1 here. And with the emphasis on, yes, the Browns made a heck of a lot of headway as far as building their roster and contending with the AFC. But the biggest addition to this roster will be Deshaun Watson rounding back to form. We're going to continue on here. We are going to get to segment 2 here of Locked On Browns. We're going to talk a little about the potential of the dime defense because, frankly, I don't think people are giving it enough lip service. Jeff Lloyd, Locked On Browns. Appreciate every single one of you for being along for the ride. Baseball season is in full swing, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's $1,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon to join today. Look, Everybody knows, diehard New York Mets fan. I love the same game parlay. I check it out. I don't put much money down. The Mets have been disappointing me a little bit, but it's a small amount of money with a good chance at a serious reward. Don't miss your chance to snag a no sweat first bet up to $1,000 when you join FanDuel today. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. FanDuel, official partner of Major League Baseball. Major League Baseball trademarks used with permission. Your host, Jeff Lloyd, continuing through here on your latest Locked On Browns. And as always, appreciate all the everydayers who make Locked On Browns their first listen. And again, you want to be like the everydayers, make sure you subscribe to the Locked On Browns YouTube channel. Notifications on, and Locked On Browns is always available, always free, wherever you get your podcasts. Now, we talked about this some last year and something we thought was going to be good for the Browns, their dime grouping on defense. Problem is Brown never really got the opportunity to get to a lot of time. Early in the season, the dime failed them. New York Jets, week 2, obviously. But you look at this now, and you look at it, and now there's a couple ways to go about this. You can go about this with the Browns playing 4 defensive linemen. We've heard Jim Schwartz tell us a lot of opportunities. He's going to want to rush 5. There are ways you can do that. If you play 4 defensive linemen, you can keep a linebacker on the field. You can maybe blitz the linebacker, so you're rushing 5. You can maybe blitz a secondary player, so you're bringing 5. You can also play 5 defensive linemen, which means you would then have 6 defensive backs on the field. Who's going to cover the middle? Well, Grant Delpit can do that. If you remember, Pete Smith and I talked years ago about if you're not necessarily sure if you have a player that is has the caliber of playing a dime linebacker role, that's fine. There's no reason you can't use a safety. This is something I guarantee you Grant Delpit can do. The other thing that I really, really like about this, if you want, you can always obviously have JOK out there, and JOK, the difference between JOK and Grant Delpit between size, weight, speed is negligible. Obviously, if it was JOK, you'd want to make sure that he was having everything in front of him. Grant Delpit, you're certainly going to get a little bit more versatility. We've seen Grant Delpit have a lot of success getting interceptions between the hash marks. So this is something Grant Delpit could do if you're trying to maximize your athleticism in dime spots. So you could play McLeod, you could play Thornhill, you could certainly play Grant Delpit, you could play Greg Newsome, you could play Denzel Ward, you could play Martin Emerson, and just having those 6 defensive players on the field at the same time. Look, again, and everybody, he's got. Blah, blah, blah. You tell me you find a roster that can put 6 better defensive backs on the field at the same time than Denzel Ward, Greg Newsome, Martin Emerson, Juan Thornhill, Rodney McLeod, and Grant Delpit. If you tell me there is a team in the NFL that can put a better 6 defensive backs on the field at one time, I'll listen to it. But I'm going to tell you this. The Browns probably go top 3, top 5 in that regard. And if you're going to be a winning team and you are going to have teams throwing the ball all over against you in the second half because they're behind, you want plus defensive backs. This is the potential here. We all know what Denzel Ward can do. Health has always been the only thing that's held him back. And, for Denzel, it's his own worst enemy, probably. It's one thing to be told you're undersized your entire life. So what do you end up doing? You end up trying to show everybody that maybe even if you are undersized, it doesn't affect the physicality that you play with. And at times, it's been something that's, kind of hurt Denzel. But you think as Denzel gets older now, Denzel now is on that second deal, making some serious money. I think Denzel has understood and probably realizes now that protecting himself is probably key and vital to his franchise. To his future with this franchise and his future within the NFL. Greg Newsome, player with his chip on his shoulder. And I'm not sure how much of it got blown up. And this is what happens sometimes. Something's put out on social media. A player makes a comment in the heat of the moment or any one of those things, and all of a sudden it gets blown up in exponential proportions. Greg Newsome has been a solid player for this team. And I think the biggest issue Greg Newsome had is he was coming off a strong rookie year. And Martin Emerson came in and played really, really well. And it wasn't a knock that Greg Newsome didn't play well, but all that was is now here you are in this situation where you have a good, very good second year player and you have a very, very good rookie player in a room that already has established who their number one corner is. That certainly creates some problems. And everybody wants to see the field. And there's nothing wrong with anybody saying they want to, if anybody's comfortable being, a 52nd, 53rd man, that's on you. Everybody wants to be part. They want to be the guy who makes the play. And I think that's the situation Greg Newsome got into last year. But now you continue through and you look at it. And if you're going to play, and yes, this was a Joe Woods thing of playing three safeties at the same time. But the thing is there is versatility between all three of these guys. McLeod can cover a nickel receiver. Thornhill can cover a nickel receiver. Grant Delpit, probably more tight ends than nickel guys. Juan Thornhill, and if you've never checked out YouTube, check out Juan Thornhill from his senior year in high school state championship and just see the overall freak of an athlete that Juan Thornhill is. Normally a guy like Juan Thornhill doesn't play safety. He is so athletic. He plays corner. But in his time at UVA, they switched him there, basically took to it, became a star, became a high second-round pick. The rest of the story is to be told. Juan Thornhill as a safety can cover an outside receiver. Make no mistake about that. So you guys who can play in the slot, they can play against the tight end. They can blitz with these three tight ends. And with these three safeties. Thornhill here for the time being. Grant Delpit going into the last year of his contract with the Cleveland Browns. Rodney McLeod basically comes in as the tutor of the secondary room, having had that experience with Jim Schwartz, having had the ultimate success with defense coordinator Jim Schwartz. And it puts the Browns just in a serious, solid situation. Even if the Browns are to have guys miss a little time. You got to remember, they still have Hickman as an undrafted free agent. And this is a player that probably, I think, easily will make the Browns roster. But I think there are a bunch of other rosters. Ronnie Hickman would have been a guy who maybe had the ability to start as a rookie, maybe not from day one, even though he was a UDFA. You come from Ohio State, it's there. You've seen everybody. You've played against everybody. You're not, scared of the big room, of the big crowd, or playing on the road. The Browns have serious potential in this secondary. And I think Jim Schwartz, with keeping the verbiage limited, which we've heard so much of these players speaking of, a lot less communication on the field. And again, just let athletes athlete. And Jim Schwartz is no fool. Jim Schwartz is no idiot. Jim Schwartz understands the potential of all these players in the room. He knows what Denzel, Greg, Martin, Juan, of course, Grant, and of course, McLeod, who he knows best of all. Just let these guys go out and play. They know what they're doing. Don't bog them down by thinking or, reading into things too much and having trying to communicate. No, read, react, and go ball. Jim Schwartz is no fool, and that's what this defensive secondary is going to do for the Cleveland Browns in the 2023 season. And when it gets to nickel, when it gets to dime, and the linebackers get off the field, and the better athletes, the secondary players get on, it is going to be lights out, and it's going to be a ton of fun to watch with this amount of talent on the field for the Cleveland Browns secondary. I am Jeff Lloyd, your Locked On Browns host. Been here now, 7th season, started in 2017. Wasn't fun, kids. 2018 was very, very exciting. 2019, 2020, and then last year, 21, 22. A lot of disappointment. A lot of, here we go again. But to the everydayers who make Locked On Browns their first listen, my biggest suggestions to everybody else who's rolling through here, as we're getting a lot of new traffic, hi Bengals fans, make sure you're subscribed to the Locked On Browns YouTube channel, notifications on, and Locked On Browns is always available. It is always free wherever you get your podcasts. Continuing through here on Locked On Browns. Again, I just appreciate all of you all for the support here. Locked On Browns. We're getting closer. Come on, guys. Hit those buttons. All the new people. Let's go. 6,000 subscribers. Getting very, very close. Let's get that number going. Want to close it out here today and talk a little bit about the defensive end room, the edge group for the Browns, because I think they have a really, really nice mix of today's stars. A guy who a lot of people think is going to thrive under Jim Schwartz, a player that has been excelling and has the opportunity to excel here in 2023 with Jim Schwartz. And then to talk about what is left in that room. And talking about one guy that was a top 100 pick, one guy that was very close to being a top 100 pick. But to talk about Myles Garrett, and they're not enough adjectives. There are just not enough superlatives of what this guy can do. And as we started to see with Myles over the last couple of years, is he's able to gravitate and find himself in the big moment, not afraid to make a game-clinching play. If everybody remembers Baltimore Raven game in 2021, strip sack, touchdown game, basically a play that turned the tide of that game. Defensive player of the year potential every season he takes the field. Defensive player of the week potential every week he takes the field. Just one of the greatest athletes to ever play the position. And as he gets older, he gets wiser, he gets smarter, he understands his opponents better. And even the Bengals, look, Orlando Brown Jr., it's a nice move for them. Orlando Brown Jr.'s career against Myles Garrett, it's not good. It's never been good. It's probably not going to change anytime soon. But for Myles Garrett, the potential to be defensive player of the year is there this year. He is playing on a line where he has players that are of his ilk in Dalvin Tomlinson on the inside, players that are certainly of his ilk in Zadarius Smith on the outside. Zadarius Smith is a technician. He is savvy. He is a high motor guy. He's played for winning franchises in Baltimore. He has played for winning franchises with the Packers. He has played for winning franchises with the Minnesota Vikings. It is there for Zadarius Smith. And this might start to be the sunset of Zadarius Smith's career. And Zadarius Smith, what do you want? You want another long playoff run? You want a shot at a Super Bowl? This is what you want if you're a player like Zadarius Smith. This is why you come to Cleveland. This is why you pair up with a guy like Jim Schwartz. This is why you pair up with a guy with the talent of Myles Garrett. Okoronklwo. Now, this move obviously came before Zadarius Smith, and a lot of Browns fans were super excited, and understandably so, about this move. Whether or not the potential was there, in my opinion, that he was going to come in and be a starter, and everybody knows he excelled last year when Houston decided, hey, we're going to give him the opportunity, and he played well for the Houston Texans last year. Whole new changes, everything new in Houston. But for the Browns, I think ideally Okoronklwo is best suited in the role he's going to play, at least this season, as the third D end. And, hopefully not taking so many, and he's a tad bit undersized compared to the rest of the guys, but he's going to, don't want to be taking on a ton of blocks. You would like to have him on the field more in obvious passing situations. The athleticism is there. He can get inside or outside against any offensive tackle blocking him. And I think to get him in a room with Zadarius Smith and get him in a room, obviously with Myles Garrett, Okoronklwo, I think we're going to see the shine and the growth come even a little bit more for Okoronklwo. You just see it. Maybe the numbers go down because he's playing with a group that has a little bit more talent. But here's a move, and I think the move of Okoronklwo looks even better now, the way this room is, as opposed to the way this room was constructed when the move for him originally took place. You got yet another young defensive end player in this mix. Now you have Zadarius Smith, so you kind of put maybe Okoronklwo as that swing edge. Really, really looks appealing. Now I talk about what the potential of this room is down the road, and we'll start with Alex Wright. In our last episode, we sat down with Kyle Krabs. Kyle, formerly of good Lord, this guy is Scouting Network. Kyle, fantastic job over there. But with Alex Wright coming out of UAB, you could see there was rawness there. And UAB probably didn't necessarily do him a lot of favors by playing him on the inside as much as they did. But look, they were undermanned, they were under-talented. So sometimes you just kind of try to find a spot to put Alex Wright because they needed the opportunity to make plays. But what you saw from Alex Wright on the inside, and this is still something that excites me about Alex Wright, is the intelligence of a player who is that athletic to know when he's not getting home, to know when he's not winning, to basically make himself bigger than he is, spread them arms, block the passing lanes. He had a couple balls knocked down. But I think we're going to see a little bit more jump from Alex Wright here on the outside here in year two. Play with a little more confidence. Have a guy like Jim Schwartz coach him up, not just with his technique, but also coach him up mentally. And hey, here's the potential you have. Don't overthink it. Don't second think it. If this is your gut instinct, use it. If it doesn't work, we'll learn off of that. Teachable moment. We'll watch the tape and we'll say, hey, this is why you shouldn't have done that, as opposed to this is why this did succeed. So Alex Wright going into year 2 here. I don't want to be like sky's the limit and talk about a guy's going to get 10 sacks. I don't think that's the role here. Didn't have a sack at all last year. But I think for a guy like Alex Wright here in year 2, where all the newness is gone, comes in, just be able to, just play, not think as much, which Jim Schwartz seems to be the calling card of what he wants to do to everybody on this defense, is to cut down on the verbiage, cut down on the thinking, just read, react, and go be a football player. Isiah McGuire, again, brought in 6'4", 270, basically right in that sweet spot of what the Browns like out of their edge players. Better athlete than I think people believe. A Missouri team that did not have a ton of success. But I'm going to tell you right now, put on the Georgia tape. Watch Isiah McGuire go against Georgia, understanding that they had no chance in that game. But Isiah McGuire is probably one of the few people you see on that field wearing a Missouri Tiger helmet who felt otherwise and felt that he matched up with everybody on that Georgia roster. And he went to town on a team and gave them everything they had. Now you look at it, maybe what's your ceiling for Isiah McGuire here in year 1? Maybe 12, 18 reps a game. There's a lot of guys in front of him, but here's just another guy that you put on the path, you put with Jim Schwartz, and you work on technique. You work on the mind. You work on the visual aspect of what you're taking from tape to what you think this guy is going to do against you. And you can watch, what the players that Myles has gone against in the past and watching tape. You can watch players who have tried to block Zadarius Smith in the past, players who tried to block Okoronklwo. And you kind of try to find your way if you're Isiah McGuire and say, well, I kind of do that a little bit like him. I kind of do that a little bit like him. I kind of do that like a little bit like him. So that's how you start to get your mental game plan of what you're expecting from potential pass blockers. And to keep in mind, we're talking about Alex Wright. We are talking about Isiah McGuire, both players drafted, 170s, one about 120s. Both of these players, a 3rd round pick, a 4th round pick, both of these players who will be competing for the 4th and 5th edge rusher position for this Cleveland Browns team in 2023. But when their time is called, they should be able to, I don't want to say to be a difference maker, but they should be able to contribute. They showed the ability in college. Alex Wright, we knew it was going to be a big transformation in year 1, and that's pretty much what it was. Isiah McGuire, you figure that path should not be the same for him in his rookie year here in Cleveland. So this edge group, I just love the way in that dynamic switch it's built. You got 2 established stars, one of whom is a Hall of Famer. You've got a player many feel is going to be a riser as a defensive end player here for the Cleveland Browns in 2023, and 2 guys with serious potential, untapped potential, and guys that can be contributors as your 4th and 5th defensive end here for the Cleveland Browns in 2023. So we got to a lot here today. Obviously, the biggest addition in 2023, and there were a bunch of them from Andrew Berry, but the biggest addition in 2023 was already here in Cleveland with Deshaun Watson. The dime package, again, if you can find a team that can put 6 secondary players on the field capable of Denzel Ward, Greg Newsome, Martin Emerson, Juan Thornhill, Grant Delpit, and Rodney McLeod, I'm all ears. I really am. I am all ears. And then we got to talk about the shape of this edge room. 2 stars, a riser, and 2 potential serious contributors down the line for the Cleveland Browns. I am Jeff Lloyd at Jeff_LJ_Lloyd, host of Locked On Browns, my 7th season here. Appreciate everybody who makes Locked On Browns their first listen every day. Like the everydayers, become like the everydayers. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Notifications on. Locked On Browns is always free, always available wherever you get your audio podcast. This has been your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound. LGB on ELOB. Let's go Browns.